Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all again. Um, we're going live tonight with a few more updates, and also to recap the updates from our afternoon edition episode from today. Um, so we're gonna start with new business, and that new business is so far Biden has won two out of the three um, primaries that we're running today. He won Florida. Um, strongly won Florida, which we'll get to something else that happened in Florida. And he's projected to win the other two states as well. Um, now, when it comes to Illinois, there has been evidence of. Sorry. There has been evidence of electioneering in Chicago, Illinois. And so electioneering is trying to alter the outcome of an election through certain means. And it's generally speaking illegal. And so the form of electioneering we see here, and I'm about to show it to you all, is a punch card paid for by Senator Ricky Hendon, and says State Senator Ricky Hendon's 2020 Democratic sample ballot. Countywide, vote for these good candidates. And it goes down President, Congress 7th District, Biden delegate, State Rep 9th District, State Rep 10th District, Commissioner, 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 State Attorney, and Clerk of Circuit Court. Now, this, which I'm about to show you, is a very clear example of highly illegal electioneering. This is trying to influence the election on the day of the election through paraphernalia. So I'm going to go ahead and transition over to that. As you can see here, this is the photo. We can see going down, he recommended who people should vote for. This is not only electioneering, but this is an abuse of power by State Senator Ricky Hendon in Illinois. It is paid for by the Ricky Hendon Early Voting Committee. So clearly, he's paying for this. He's getting something out of this. He's likely using campaign funds for this. You can see to the right here is someone's ballot. And this is just highly, highly unethical. It's illegal, taboo, and it's just plain wrong. And if you don't believe me, you can go through the Twitter comments here. We could even go to the state legislature code, which we're not going to do, but it is there. If you want to look up the state of Illinois' legislation on electioneering, feel free, be my guest. Our other piece of business today that's new from earlier broadcast is massive voter suppression in Florida. In fact, a Twitter user by the name of Rachel Gilmer, handle @rawgilmer, exposed this voter suppression. We had thousands of students. I'm paraphrasing what she said. Make sure those are the right pronoun. Rachel Gilmore is a co-director of the Dream Defenders. I do not see declared pronouns, so I'm going to assume they are she, her, for simplicity's sake. And Rachel Gilmore, please forgive me if I'm using the wrong pronouns. Alright, so she said thousands of students across the state had plans to vote this primary. Florida is ground for crisis facing our generation, and we've got a new vision for the future. Yet, many no longer have access to the ballot because on Thursday, campuses across the state told students to get off campus, move back home, and that school would be shut down for the rest of the semester due to COVID-19. because these students registered to vote in the county where their school was, but in the midst of the corona had to leave for another part of the state or the country, they can no longer vote because they are no longer in the county that they registered to vote in. Now, Governor Ron DeSantis, according to Rachel Gilmer's analysis, could have called for a massive vote by mail measure, could have used emergency powers to allow students to vote from any county in the state, but he's done nothing. And Dream Defenders organizers, oh, there's my dog. There's my dog, everybody. Hi, Biscuit. I'm broadcasting. You're a good boy. All right. So, Dream Defenders organizers have been talking to students all semester, according to Rachel Gilmer, making sure that they are registered, educating them impartially on candidates, and making sure they had plans to vote. So, and I'm going to quote Rachel Gilmer verbatim here. Quote, "So, when you're watching the election coverage from Florida tonight, they surely won't tell you this, but you should know that there is massive voter disenfranchisement taking place, and it's no coincidence that young people are at the center of it." End quote. Those are my two more up-to-date updates. Also, Arizona closed and changed polling locations with little to no notice. There was one elderly woman who was 82 years old who had to be led to a third voting site because she had tried two already by a cop before she was able to actually exercise her right to vote. And this is just crazy town. Not only is running the primaries in the midst of a pandemic only going to make the pandemic worse, honestly, in a sane world, we would have suspended the primaries long enough for the outbreak to go down, and then brought them back together, and also postponed the convention in Milwaukee accordingly, and even postponed the general election if necessary to ensure that people can safely vote. Now, I'm not actually advocating for Trump to use his national emergency powers to postpone the election, that he does have the power to do, but in a sane world, with a sane government, that is what we would be doing. We would be pushing these out to flatten the curve of exposure, infection, and death. That is not. So, take from that what you will. I want to recap on what I talked about earlier today, just real quickly. So Joe Biden was over the weekend tweeting out instructions to ignore state of Ohio and governor of Ohio issued warnings to vote in person anyways. The Democratic Party was continuing to shut down polling places in Arizona, which and elsewhere, which will have and did result in longer lines and ultimately more risk for COVID transmission, which ultimately leads to more deaths. Louisiana, Puerto Rico, Kentucky, Maryland, Georgia, Wyoming are all suspending their primaries, pushing them out. Most of these are going to early June. The rest are taking a wait and see approach. We have 94 known deaths here in the United States from COVID-19 and 5,702 known cases as of this morning. Our experts do expect both of these totals to be much higher, citing the lack of tests available. Now, there are more than 194,000 cases of COVID-19 and at least 7,864. The good news is about 80,000 of those people have recovered. But that means the current death rate is just over. To put that into context, the average flu kills 1 in 1,000, or a death rate of 0.001, which is a 0.1% death. So this is a 400, last I checked the math, about a 404 times more deadly. So that is a huge issue, how much more deadly this is. is a huge issue. It's 404 times so far based on the data and confirmed cases versus confirmed deaths we have. Testing isn't fully available worldwide. The shortage, it's 400 times more deadly than the flu at least. So that brings us on to best practices. Continue to social distance. Continue to self-quarantine. Continue your good hygiene habits. Wash your hands. Disinfect surfaces. Do everything in your power to prevent transmission of this disease. And moving on to local news. Again, just to recap, we went over this in the earlier episode. But Moab is closing its doors to visitors and tourists. And please stay out of southern Utah at all costs. They have very little capacity for medical care as it stands, and hospital access out there is essentially non-existent. So if you go to southern Utah and you create an outbreak there, you're condemning people to. So please, everyone, just leave southern Utah alone. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, Deseret Industries thrift stores are all closed. Now, some DI, as the Deseret Industries is known colloquially, store employees will be transferred over to the bishop's storehouses to work in their hours. That way, bishop storehouses are generally staffed by elder missionaries who are usually retirement age or older, but they're at high risk, and so the church will be moving some of their lower risk employees to staff storehouses, apparently. Let's see here. Utah Housing Coalition called on the state government, including Lieutenant Governor Cox and the Coronavirus Task Force for the state of Utah, to place a statewide moratorium on evictions and closures. And our federal senator Mitt Romney did call for $1,000 stimulus sent to each American. He also cited objections. Mitt Romney believes that the Families First Coronavirus Act is complicated, hard to implement. I passionately disagree with Mitt Romney there. In fact, I don't believe that act goes far enough. It only covers about 20% of the working people in this country. We need it to cover. So that is tonight's recap on news. Checking just a couple things here just to make everything. And last thing, there's a lot of talk about Democratic hashtag Dem exit. At this time, that could be a waste of energy. We aren't through the primaries yet. Bernie still needs us. We still need to keep fighting. I mean, the man hasn't given up in 4 years. Why should we give up now? Everything the establishment is throwing at us is simply a combination of manufactured consent through the mass media and manufactured apathy through making Biden seem stronger. So we really need to remember that the only way they win is through our stay engaged, organize. If we activate ourselves, we will win. We'll earn the better future we deserve through our hard work. I also want to speak briefly about some chatter, additionally about some chatter on Dem exit. If we're going to Dem exit, which I see the argument for, I'm all for. Time isn't right yet. Right now, it's misdirected. I'm hearing a lot of talk about starting a new progressive party, and while that sounds really cool on paper and on the mind, it's going to be very hard to implement. It's going to take years and tons of funding, tons of organizing. Which burners are really good at organizing and grassroots funding and putting the work in. But in my opinion, it's my personal opinion, make much more sense to Dem exit and then Green enter and use our organizing prowess as progressives and lefties to help the Greens organize. If all of the independents and all of the Democrats that are for Bernie left the Democratic Party and entered the Green Party and started helping with organizing or grassroots or just or whatever else each person is capable of doing, you would have a near instantaneous boost in the Greens' power, and the Greens would become a more viable party within an election cycle. The Democrats have been decades. Um, Furthermore, the Greens have adopted a platform that's in line with Bernie's. In some cases, goes a little bit further. And their current likely nominee for the presidential is Howie Hawkins, father and grand architect. So I see a lot of value in us over to the Greens if we. Right now, them exiting is a waste of energy. Just letting the establishment. So yeah, that's kind of my thought process right now. Those are the reports I currently have access to. I do want to point out that it's a factoid here. Did implement a citywide curfew. It was yesterday. State of Utah has now effectively closed down for dine-in service, and we're looking at carry out and free only. And just remember, we have to social distance, we have to observe hygiene. Even if you could survive the coronavirus, odds are people around you wouldn't. So please take every necessary step. Social distance, wash your hands copiously, self quarantine as much as possible, and just protect yourself, those you love, and those you don't know. That's really all I have for everybody tonight. I want to thank you again all for watching. It means a lot. Please go to our website, wolfoflightnews.com. We've got a coronavirus legislation tracker I'm updating uh, on a near nightly basis, depending on when the updates come in. You could subscribe for future updates on our blog. We're working on getting more contributors, so it's not just my writings, which my stuff is pretty good. If I say so myself, but I do like fresh perspectives, so we are working on. So please check it out, wolfoflightnews.com. Please follow us on Facebook and on Twitter. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all have a great night.